Eugenics is the name of a level from Time Splitters 3, one of my all-time favourite games, and probably my favourite level in the game. And the idea is you are tracking down a so-called scientist who is aiming to basically make human beings immortal through genetic experimentation and eugenics, hence the name. Now, I actually didn't know the proper definition of eugenics, so I looked it up on dictionary.com, and it is defined as the study of or belief in the possibility of improving the qualities of the human species or a human population, especially by such means as discouraging reproduction by persons having genetic defects or presumed to have inheritable undesirable traits, that's negative eugenics, or encouraging reproduction by persons presumed to have inheritable desirable traits, which is positive eugenics. And the reason I got thinking about this the other day is that recently I've become obsessed with chimpanzees. Don't know why. I think for ages I didn't know what my favourite animal was, and then one day I saw a video of a chimp with an AK-47 and thought, yes, that is my animal. And I kind of looked at various different, facts about chimps and different videos. I assumed the video of the AK-47 was fake, and probably a lot of the ones I have seen are fake, but there is a lot of genuinely really interesting stuff that chimpanzees, as an example, being I think the second most intelligent species on Earth after human beings. People say, dolphins, parrots, breeds of canine, they are all smart animals, they're all up there in the IQ charts. But chimps are thought to be the second most intelligent species, so it kind of makes sense. They are the closest animal to us genetically. We are 99% roundabouts identical to chimpanzees in terms of DNA, which I think is brilliant. And obviously, I know this is going to be controversial to some people who don't necessarily believe in evolution, but there was a common ancestor however many millions of years ago, and from that common ancestor you had human beings and chimpanzees coming off, and different apes and monkeys. They're separate groups, apes and monkeys, but we had a common ancestor, and it's kind of interesting to see that from that ancestor human beings have become the sort of dominant species. Our brain matter has enlarged by however much. I'm not a scientist, by the way. Take everything I say with a pinch of salt. Feel free to scrutinize anything I say. I'm just sort of, winging it here, given what facts I know and my opinions in there. But we have more brain matter. We have evolved to become more intelligent. We are not necessarily the reason human beings have survived for so long is because of our intelligence. We're not strong creatures. We couldn't beat a chimp in a hand-to-hand fight unless you're like Chuck Norris. Chimps are strong. Lions are strong. Rhinos are strong. We cannot punch a lion to death. That wouldn't happen. The reason we became so dominant is because our brain power far exceeds any animal. And we can create tools, we can create computers and guns and machetes and healthcare and whatever else it is we create. And that is why we are the dominant species on the Earth. But talking about eugenics, to go back to sort of the 1940s here, Hitler actually had a eugenics campaign going on. The whole thing about purging the Jews and the blacks and the gypsies and whatever else he didn't like. I don't think anyone would stand behind Hitler now and say, yeah, good guy. Horrible thing to do. Horrible. But his plan was to create in his mind a better human race, like the Aryan, blue eyes, blonde hair, whatever. I think it's like, he had a few different groups, like Nordic and Germanic and whatever, were like ranked up there, and then gypsies and Jews were like right at the bottom, But that was sort of a negative eugenic sort of thing. He was trying to eliminate them from the human gene pool. And I was kind of thinking about the actual progression of the human race now. Because as a society, we don't have natural selection in humans anymore. Natural selection is the process whereby creatures will evolve over, huge periods of time, like millions of years, through evolution. So a good example with Charles Darwin was that when he went to, I think, Galapagos Islands, some tropical island somewhere, he landed there and found various different types of bird. And this was all sort of isolated on this island. Like, they couldn't have really migrated between islands. And even within different parts of that single island, the birds had adapted different shaped beaks, sort of, different wingspans, that sort of thing, to specialise in the area they lived. So, like, you would get a different type of beak for a particular type of fruit that grew on that part of the island, just to give an example. And the way it works is, by natural selection, they mean every so often there'll be a random mutation for whatever reason. I don't really understand it. I'm not a scientist, like I said. Every so often there'll be a random mutation in the DNA of offspring. And they'll get like a slightly longer beak or a slightly higher resistance to a particular disease or something or other. And those ones are the ones that are most likely to survive. They have a better chance of surviving than any other. And therefore you would expect that they would be able to produce more offspring that have a longer lifespan. They would reproduce, and you'd end up with a population shifting towards this new sort of, I guess, paradigm of what the creature is supposed to be. Hence why, the common ancestor, humans one way, chimps the other. Humans become dominant because our brain grew so much. But in modern day society, we don't have that. We don't have natural selection. And I say this, by the way, I don't think that natural selection would be a good thing to have. This is something that Richard Dawkins actually argued himself. A Darwinian society would be horrible to live in. It would be hideous. No one in their right mind would advocate for that. Because we would eliminate, euthanize any disabled people, anyone with like Huntington's disease or shown to have a high percentage of, diabetes in the family, that sort of thing. Anyone below a certain IQ level. Anyone thought to... You know what I'm saying. Anyone who is sort of genetically weak and not good for the human race, which is essentially what Hitler was trying to do, in his mind. And it would be a hideous society to live in. You can believe in Darwinian natural selection in nature and not necessarily want it in society today. But that does come with a downside. Human beings aren't going to evolve so much anymore. We have sort of deliberately suppressed our ability as a species to evolve. For the greater good. Let's just be clear about that. It is for the greater good. We don't necessarily want to keep evolving in that way. But whereby you've got, as a society, we are caring people, right? It's human nature. We, for example, do not want to euthanize people with Down syndrome, because that is ridiculous. But if you look at some of the sort of figures, I go back to chimps especially because I'm really interested in them. Supposedly, these are the numbers I've read online somewhere, about 40% of people with Down syndrome have an IQ in the intellectual range of approximately 50 to 70. Chimps are thought to have an IQ around 80 or 90. And actually chimps have systematically beaten humans in various different sort of intelligence tests, like, memory tests. They'll hit these numbers on a screen in a particular order and they'll beat humans. Not even, necessarily disabled humans. Regular, testing humans. Healthy adult humans, I should point out. And the scary thing is, we are a society where we don't purge out. It sounds like I'm being horrible saying this. I don't mean to be horrible. I'm trying to be sort of scientific here. We don't have a society where we try and purge out these sort of impurities in the DNA. If you like, it's a horrible thing to think about, but bear with me here. So where we try and care for all these people who might not have the strongest sort of genetic code, if you like, I think the chimps are going to overtake us. I give it a few hundred years, a few thousand maybe, depending on how many nuclear wars we have between now and then. I think the chimps will overtake us. They're already using tools. They're already using, sticks to get at termite mounds. They're using leaves, like chewing them up and creating little sponges out of them. They're sharpening sticks with their teeth and using them to hunt other animals. We thought chimps were vegetarians until however many years ago. But there's footage of chimps, literally, they organise themselves in a pack. I'll show you a little video on screen here. I saw this video the other day. These chimps, the thermal markings, They are cornering off an animal. They've planned it out properly. They've got certain roles. One of them's chasing the other monkey. The others are sort of blocking them, getting ready. It's fascinating to watch. The actual full link's going to be in the description if you want to see. But I think there's nothing special about humans, is basically the point I'm making here. We put ourselves on this pedestal. We say, oh, we are God's creatures chosen to rule the earth, which I think is a load of shit. I think we are no different. We had a lucky break, basically. We happened to develop a good amount of brain power, and, you know, now in 2015 we can make cars, we can write apps for iPads and build shops. Chimps can't do that yet. I'll give you that. But what I'm saying is, I give it a few thousand years, I reckon, and Planet of the Apes may become a reality. I, for one, am interested to see what happens. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you later.